Welcome to News Stripped Down, you guys, where I dig through the news and weed out all the nonsense so you guys don't have to. 30 minutes or less. Why? Because anything longer than that's probably just BS, anyways. So it's June 5th today, Friday, 2026. It's 21 degrees Celsius, so that's 69.8 degrees Fahrenheit to you guys down in the States. Wow. I don't know. Starting to turn out to be a nice day, I guess. So yeah, let's start off with some birthdays. So today in 1883, John Maynard Keynes. He passed in 1949 at the age of 62. Keynes, as he was growing up, he looked into the way that economic downturns were, and then he retransformed the way economic theory and policy was in the 20 of what we know now in the 20th century. So really, what he did is he looked at like recession and how that affected the economy and stuff like that, and kind of started changing a few things. And then today in 1939, the 16th Prime Minister of Canada. Yeah, anyone want to guess who that is? Anyone? Anyone? Okay, I'm gonna leave that blank there. See if anyone knows. He only lasted 1 year. Here, I'll give you some hints. He only lasted 1 year, and he's quite the joke when it comes to Canada. He was voted out as non-confidence. I'll let you guys figure that one out. And today in 1949, Ken Follett, 77 today, famous writer slash author, uh, quite known for his book A Dangerous Fortune. The book was based in 1868, where a boy is at a private school, and then he mysteriously drowns in a pond under mysterious circumstances, and then just a series of unfortunate events leads to this rich family's rise and fall, which is quite interesting. Yeah, the book called A Dangerous Fortune. And today in 1951, Susie Orman, she is 75 years old today. TV personality. She's like one of these financier people, self-help books and all this other nonsense. Like she had one book called "You Earned It, Now Learn to Save It," something like that. It was more focused towards like women in the industry than it is more so guys. She was been on the Oprah show multiple times. She was quite the regular personality on that show. And today in 1953, Kathleen Kennedy is 673. Kathleen Kennedy, she's been around, movie producer for quite some time, since the E.T. days, and also had her hand in the Jurassic Park 1 and 2. And now she's the president of Lucasfilms. Yeah, Kathleen Kennedy. And today in 1971, Mark Wahlberg was born. He's 55 years old today. Mark Wahlberg, you don't know who he is? Come on, Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch. And I think one of his first movies, The Big Hit, where he started getting his acting career. But if you guys don't know the movie The Big Hit, try and find that movie. It's one of Mark Wahlberg's first movies. It's about a group of four hitmen, and the one hitman, he has like horrible time with his relationships, and he's meanwhile having an affair. The chick he's having an affair with wants to rat him out, and then his wife wants to divorce him, and meanwhile he's a hitman. He could just get rid of these people if he wanted to, but he's just so mentally confused about everything, and he thinks everyone likes him. That's another thing. He's a hitman who thinks everyone likes him. So go check out Mark Wahlberg's The Big Hit. Pretty good soundtrack on there too. So yeah, let's get into some news today. So today is June 5th, 2026. It's Friday, you guys. News stripped down 30 minutes or less. Why? Because anything longer than that's probably just BS anyways. It's 21 degrees Celsius. That's 69.8 degrees Fahrenheit to you guys down in the States. So let's get into some Manitoba news here. Actually, a lot of the news today is quite about mostly just Canadian news. Sorry about that, you guys. And of course, my napkin isn't near me. Hold on. Do I have a spare? I do. Might as well blow my nose. Ugh. It's a little windy out there, so there's stuff coming off the ground now, and people are mowing the grass. So tons of crap. Not dusty anymore though. Had these mild rains here for a bit, so it's kind of still not as much as what we need though. We still need a lot of rain here. Okay, so some Manitoba news here. So Wob Canoe was talking earlier yesterday about how he wants to start opening up a pipeline of natural gas to the port of Churchill in northern Manitoba. Well, this is going to be plagued with lots of issues. He's already said right now he hasn't seemed to have any backlash from the chiefs in the Northern Territories about approving of this pipeline. He kind of just went around their back and was like, okay, I think I can talk the chiefs into this. Well, the one chief who's kind of in control of these Northern Territories, he's like, hey, you know what? It's up to these each individual areas to decide on what they want done when it comes to pipeline. Yes, you could sit there and point the fingers at me, but it really comes down to the First Nations in that local jurisdictions that are going to be able to approve this pipeline or not. And then really, does it sound feasible to be putting natural gas holding facility and refilling station in Churchill? Like, yeah, we're going to be piping the natural gas in with a pipeline, but is it going to be feasible? Like, I would like to see them do some major test runs before they even start putting any money into this. And then again, you're still going to have to deal with the Aboriginal people around, and if this pipeline's going to get done. I know it's not going to be as much as a headache as like what BC is, but it could be a more of a headache here. But I'd like to see something, like some tests done first and a little bit more talk before, he says that we're going to start opening up, a major corridor in Churchill. Yes, it's going to create a lot of jobs and stuff, but like you got to realize like that area that Churchill is in. They're at the basin of the Hudson Bay. So we're gonna have to make sure that we have ship icebreakers, all this other stuff. And is that trade route? What if it gets frozen over and ships get stuck there? That's a whole nother issue too. And over to Alberta, Transatlanta is looking into buying a pair of two gas-fired power plants from Blackstone. This is just talks right now. I'm gonna do a little bit more digging into this for Monday. This is kind of just popped up right as I was going live, but more of a note for me than anything. But that's gonna be interesting because really some of these natural gas power plants that they have right now that they have in Canada, they aren't designed to be running here in Canada. These are designed in warmer climates like California and Texas. Like you see some of these natural gas hydro stations or generating stations, you see them adding stacks and adding stack and adding stack so they can get proper draw. It's a flow technique, and if you can't get proper flow, then you're not going to be anything efficiently. You got to have a balance, and the balance is like height of stack to burning and then outside temperatures. So it's be interesting to see what gas facilities that Transalt is looking into buying, but I'll have more information on Monday about that for sure. And yeah, sorry, back to Manitoba news. There's some more here. Yeah, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe. I'm here Monday to Friday, 4 to 4:30 p.m. Central Time. So yeah, what I was talking about this yesterday about how Wob Canoe said that he's said no to that data center just south of Winnipeg. Um, and then what Carney said yesterday is kind of it. It's confusing to some people. Wob Canoe saying like no to data centers, like there's better ways of doing this, blah blah blah. And then you have Carney just after that saying like, hey, yeah, we're pro data centers. We kind of need to, and I talked about this yesterday too. Yes, there's time to build data centers, and then there's times not to build data centers. Like you see so many of these data centers being built throughout the United States, and it's like, what's the point? Like some of these data centers, like look at how much information and data we've used now before all these, and we didn't have all these major data centers. So now all of a sudden there's this need for massive amounts of data centers. What were we using before that was holding all our data? Like think about that. It just doesn't make sense. So Carney's talking on one side where he says, yeah, we want to do data centers, but we want to do it right. We want to do it more for the people and have it like more Canada based, so it's kind of in our control at all times. There's a lot of countries right now that are building their own data centers. Turkey is one, for instance, that wants to build their own data centers, and all their data is going to stay within their own country. It's probably still going to be hooked up to the internet, obviously, and there's always going to be some way of some country or some foreign adversary to try and get into these data centers. But to sit there and just hand over our data to a US based company, AI companies, like why? Why when we could do that here? But then should we start building these data centers now so we don't fall behind? Or do we wait to see what's going to happen with these data centers that they're doing throughout the United States right now? Because this is like a supply and demand issue right now. And if we have too much abundance of something, then this data center market is going to crash eventually. Like I don't see where the money is going. Like they say, yes, it's going to create jobs. Yes, to build these data centers. It, but that's it. Once the data centers are built, that's it. The amount of staffing you're going to need is very minimal, and then really most of the time it's going to be hiring janitors, minimal paying jobs to work at these data centers. It's not going to be high paying like sustainable jobs. And like I said, with the amount of influx of these data centers, is it a good choice for Canada to start jumping into this data center market? Like, yes, we're playing catch up with our military. We're playing catch up with the way we're getting product out to market. And should we let this fall through the cracks? Like, it's a double edged sword here, you guys, when it comes to stuff like this. So I, I don't know. I don't know. I'm praising Wob Canoe for saying no to that data center in Winnipeg because really there is real no need for it. And then most of the proceeds and the money that that data center is going to make is going to go to the United States anyways, and then it's going to be taking power and industry or resources away from the people themselves. You're going to take our water away. You're going to be taking our hydro away. And then you also have to realize, yes, we have hydropower. What if we have a bad year of rain? We've already had a couple bad years of rain where we had to minimize the amount of power that the hydroelectric dams were putting out. So then sustainability again. Yes, we can promise them all this power, but promises can be easily broken. Be like, oh, sorry, we had a bad drought this year, so we can't be running a power to power your data center. So then it's going to come to a need to basis. And then what's to stop these data centers from suing Manitoba Hydro for pulling out of an agreement? Like, hey, you said you were going to be able to sustain like a good amount of energy to run this data center permanently, but now you're saying, oh, we can't supply you because we don't have enough water for the hydroelectric dams. So it's a double-edged sword. There's a lot of confrontation here, a lot of talking heads from both sides. And I just don't see the need for data centers. I really don't. With a smart enough, good enough computer now and some of the equipment you can get now, you can put your own personal data centers at home and feasibly at that. And you don't have to worry about it going out there. So I don't know. There's ways around things, and Wob Canoe kind of said it best. Like with a good MacBook, now a good expensive MacBook, you could pretty much store and do everything you wanted to do through the federal government. And what would it take to just have one Canada data center? And they'll say you can't just have one, blah blah blah. You gotta have multiples. So you gotta have a backup. But to just build one data center for Canada, I think would be more feasible than, allowing some outside forum to come in and, take advantage of our resources and our power and really see no benefits out of it because they're going to get tax breaks as well on this hydro, this electricity. Oh, and some U.S. news. Actually, hold on a second. Here, let's do this. So, Danielle Smith, the premier of Alberta, she's been in Quebec here with talks with some Quebec premiers on, if they can, like, kind of come to an agreement here. But really, what I'm seeing right now is Danielle Smith in Quebec being like, hey, you guys are having the same problems that we're having with Ottawa. Can we kind of like make out a deal here? Like, it's like, yeah, just by trying to make it seem like, yeah, you're having the same issues with Ottawa and Quebec's having the same issues, you think that's going to make us friends? Like, even Danielle Smith is even talking right now. It's like, okay, if BC wants to play hardball right now, what if we did a pipeline from Alberta into Quebec and then we work out an agreement where you guys worry about transporting it, to other countries? But like, think about the logistics of that. That's not going to work in the first place. And you think Quebec's going to allow that? And like, just some of these ideas that are being thrown out there just doesn't work. And then the thoughts right now, it's like, here, let's finally go sit down and talk with Quebec now that Alberta wants to separate from Canada. And then you know what Quebec is going to say? Okay, Alberta, where were you when we tried to separate the first time? Like, why would we stand with you now when you were like, well, screw Quebec, I'll kick them out of the country, blah, blah, blah. Why do you think that Quebec all of a sudden now is going to agree with some of your terms? And then after what Quebec has been through with them trying to separate, do you really think that they're going to try and separate again from Canada? No. No, they've tried it once. It's not going to work. They tried doing it a second time. Didn't work. So really, I don't know why Danielle Smith there. I almost guarantee they're talking in French behind her back because they're tell you the truth, I have nothing good to say about her. And me living in Quebec for a couple of years there and learning how the politics and just how the people are there, I almost guarantee as soon as that door closes and her back is turned, they are making fun of her and calling her every French uh, expletive you could probably think of. And most of it's church, foreign, or church bad language. So yeah, I just find this funny. I don't know what kind of deals or agreements that Danielle Smith could say to Quebec to make them, get along. They will never get along. And the reason that they'll never get along is because Quebec doesn't like the rest of this country in the first place. And yes, they're not going to try and separate. There's too many good things that they can get through the federal government. And trust me, the federal government gives Quebec quite a bit of money, especially when it comes to their telecommunications. They get their own TV programs. You have to realize this. When you see that Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, or this has been sponsored by Canadian Broadcast Company, almost 80% of that money goes to Quebec for their own programming. Like, okay, so think we have American or Canadian Idol here, just as an example. Okay, so we have Canadian Idol, right? Well, Quebec province has to have their own idol, so it's Quebec Idol. So you realize, so for each Canadian program that we have, we either have to come up with a French version of it and an English version, okay? Or we have to be able to dub it good enough to where Quebecois will watch it. So now, like, think about that. That's 80% of all of Canada's communications revenue going to Quebec just so they can have their language to watch on TV. So yeah, that's pretty messed up. Oh, and then speaking of Quebec and Danielle Smith being in that area of the country, Ottawa is extending tariffs on steel and aluminum imports for 1 more year. This is just kind of stabilize. Well, it's not even to stabilize the market. This is to ensure steel and aluminum smelts and iron workers have stable income and stable jobs for the next year. due to the fact that there's a lot of other foreign countries that are doing product cheaper than what we are. So, but think about that. We could be getting stuff cheaper, blah, 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 but it's going to hurt jobs. So, even whether we get the product here from Canada, it's going to be expensive to do, but you're using Canadian product. So, everything's going to just balloon in cost no matter what now because we're sitting here trying to defend ourselves. So, I don't know. Some of this tariffing back and forth. And steel workers are going to be happy about this. Auto workers, aluminum smelts will be happy with this. But we'll all see what happens on July 1st. Uh, okay, and then over to the US. Over to the US. So, well, Canada, US. So Doug Ford's planning on going to Washington with other provinces and territories leaders for this Kuzma talks to see what kind of areas are going to be beneficial to the United States, what kind of areas, kind of need more looking at, what kind of areas are getting tariffed harder, how we can kind of expunge that. So, but Doug Ford, he spent $8 million on a 30-second commercial during the Super Bowl to kind of just speak his opinion on what the US should do with Canada. And this put a lot of conflict between Canada and the US. And this should have been run through the proper channels first before this was ever aired. Because it just put egg on the rest of Canada's face. I know there's a lot of Canadians out there watching the Super Bowl. They were like, yeah, yeah, yeah. About time we see some more Canadian commercials and stuff. Not these type. Not especially when they're going to affect trade talks, and they are affecting trade talks right now. And with Doug Ford going to talk about some of these Kuzma deals and what he can offer the United States from Ontario and what vice versa, already right now the United States doesn't want to talk to Doug Ford. And right now, even with some of the things Wob Canoe is saying, there's a lot of premiers in Canada right now that are kind of talking a little too much shit right now, and they should just be keeping their mouth shut like Carney is. And everyone should be taking something from Carney right now. Like, he's being very decisive of what he is reacting to when it comes to the United States, and he's being very decisive on how he's wording things. He's not just blatantly going out and being like, you know what, like Wob Canoe. He's like, okay, get rid of the tariffs, and then we'll bring the booze back. Like it's as easy as that. Like, no booze for you, so you lose. Like, okay, well, yeah, sound bites and stuff like that. It's not really going to be helping this Kuzma agreements along the way here, and especially with Doug Ford. And I know with Doug Ford, everyone's talking about this airplane, this airplane, this airplane. Why aren't we talking about the $8 million for that 30-second commercial that he used Canadian taxpayers' dollars to put on the Super Bowl? Why aren't we talking about that? That's $8 million. That could have went to something more useful. And the only thing that did is affect our agreements when it comes to some of this Kuzma deal. Because in the United States right now, some of these officials, this is the only thing they can think about right now because you really ground it into their head by putting it on during the Super Bowl. It's like, oh, Doug Ford had to do this commercial. Like, wow, you can't say that about America, blah. Well, you see how what's going on here? So I don't know. You guys tell me if you think Doug Ford goes to the United States to sit there and agree to some of these or sit down and talk about this Kuzma nonsense. Do you think it's going to hurt Canada? Or is it going to be beneficial to actually have him speak there face to face with somebody? Because talking to somebody like this, yelling in their face isn't going to work either, Doug. And that's pretty much what you did with that commercial in the Super Bowl. You're just spitting in their face and for absolutely no reason. Yeah, so like Doug Ford doesn't have a good rapport with the United States right now. Like, and I just see him going down for these talks to see if they can work out an agreement. I, I think it's dead in the water already. I'd be lucky to see if he even gets to sit down on some of these meetings or if they kind of go put him at the kids' table. At Christmas time, there's a little kids' table. What if they give them that little kids' room? With all the difficult Canadians like Wob Canoe, they'll put Wob Canoe. Well, obviously Danielle Smith, she's gonna get a nice big room because they want to get that oil out of there. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's not good for anything. Not good for anything. I don't think Doug going down to the States is a good idea for Canada in the first place. And he's not going to apologize. And then with Doug Ford going after even Canadian companies, it's just, yeah, I'm pro Canada. No, you're not pro Canada, but your things you're doing right now are really hurting. I know there's a lot of people in your corner that are standing up and cheering for you because of your sound bites, but you're no better than Trump himself. That's exactly what you are. You're just a Canadian version of Trump, and you want your voice to be heard. And then speaking of this Kuzma deal between Canada and the United States here, before even the United States would even sit down with Canada, the United States was like, okay, we want access to your dairy, or you're not going to be able to sit down at this market. Carney was like, no, just he didn't even answer that with a reply. It was like, you're not getting into our dairy. And I don't think the Americans realize how controlled the dairy market is here. Dairy market here in Canada it's like the mob. It's literally like the mob. It is so controlled. It's probably even more better controlled and more organized than the actual mob itself. So what America wanted was to be able to sell their dairy products up here in Canada. Okay, well, what that would do, would destroy the quota for the dairy farmers right now. Like dairy farmers, they have a quota that they have to make. Once they reach that quota, okay, that's how much milk we need for the month. We got some extra, okay, then we dump it. Why do they dump it? To keep the level of milk, the cost of milk where it is. So yes, they're overproducing milk, but anything above that they have to get rid of. And this is to keep the milk market stable as it is. So the farmers are still making money, the companies are still making money, and the end consumers are still like having an affordable product. So if we gave up our dairy to the Americans where they would bring produce, their dairy products up into Canada, that would drastically affect how the dairy market is handled up here. Because, yes, they're going to undercut us, but now the dairy farmers are going to get undercut. And they're already, these are some of the hardest people that you're ever going to have to deal with. And you got to realize, like Quebec, some of the dairy products that come out of there, it's like double pasteurized, triple pasteurized. They're doing techniques to pasteurize their milk to make specific types of cheeses and specific types of products. So if if you can't get Quebec to agree to anything, you're not going to get the rest of the country. Quebec dairy farmers have the major control throughout Canada when it comes to dairy. This is like Alberta controlling the oil. Quebec controls the milk across Canada. And if it wasn't for those farmers, like the rest of Canada could be like struggling now when it comes to, pushing their dairy products out. So one good thing that did come out of Quebec is those asshole dairy farmers out of there, keeping a price the way it is and keeping dairy farmers happy. So yeah, we're not going to allow American dairy to come up to Canada by any means because it's going to destroy the dairy market here. Oh, deadly. Do a few things. I got a little bit of time. That's it for the news today, you guys. 30 minutes or less. Why? Because anything longer than that's just BS anyways. I'm here Monday to Friday, 4 to 4:30 p.m. Central Time. Yeah, where I dig through the news and weed out the nonsense so you guys don't have to. So yeah, things that happened today in history. June 5th. U.S. Secretary of State George C. Marshall outlines the Marshall Plan, and this is a plan to rebuild Western Europe in 1947 after World War II. There, still a little bit of a hiccup trying to get things being built. There's still other previous agreements to get Europe built, but they're kind of just spreading out in concentric circles and giving certain countries a little bit more money than what they needed to, build up their main infrastructures first. And today in 1963, a state of siege is declared in Iran with the Ayatollah being arrested. 1963. And today in 1967, the Six-Day War begins between Israel, Egypt, Jordan, and Syria. And this is because Egypt was holding back a shipping route between Israel and Egypt there, and Israel just got fed up. They needed that proper shipping route, and this is why Israel started attacking Egypt, Jordan, and Syria. And today in 1968, Robert Kennedy, well, he was shot 3 times, attempted assassination at the Ambassador Hotel in LA, California, uh, dying the next day. So he wasn't, well, I guess you could still call it an assassination, but he didn't die right there. He died the next day in hospital. That was in 1952. Robert Kennedy, oh, sorry, 1968. Robert Kennedy, JFK's little brother. And then today in 1952, the first nationally televised sporting event. Jersey Joe and Izzard Charles box it out for 15 rounds in Philadelphia. This is their fourth time fighting face to face in a boxing match, which is pretty crazy. And this is for the heavyweight title. Do 15 rounds, and that was in Philadelphia. And then today in 1987, Nightline presents its first town meeting episode with the topic being AIDS, and it ran till 3:47 a.m. So obviously a hot topic in 1987. If you guys weren't born in the 80s and you don't know how it is, the AIDS epidemic and the whole controversy between AIDS it was pretty crazy. You had like the gay movement, the AIDS epidemic, just so many things coming out of the 70s that people weren't ready for, or people have any proper answers for. But the way AIDS and stuff is dealt with now is, it should be talked about more due to the fact that here in Manitoba it's actually classified as an epidemic now. With I think there's over 300 and some cases, new cases just this year alone. But they're blaming that on intravenous use, drug use, homeless, and stuff like that. It's like, whoa, 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 you can't just point the finger. Okay, let's kick a group of people while they're down already. Now think about this. Okay, now you see a homeless person or a drug addict. Now you'll be like, oh great, get away from me. You probably have AIDS. It's gonna put a, a face, an extra face that these people don't need on themselves. And then what did they forget to talk about? They forgot about prostitution. Here, yeah, let's blame the AIDS epidemic on the drug use and the homeless people. And this is the words they said: the drug addicts and the homeless people. Not all homeless people are drug addicts. Not all homeless people are IV users. So to sit there and just put that blame on them, screw you, CBC. Here, let's talk about prostitution then. There's a big contributor when it comes to HIV and AIDS. It's a sexually transmitted disease. It's not just an intravenously transmitted disease. So why aren't we talking about prostitution, CBC, when it comes about this AIDS epidemic? Why? Because the net person working next to you, goes and hangs out with hookers, and you don't want to sit there and think, oh, well, he can't have AIDS. But then you put this stigma on the homeless and the drug addicts where these people have AIDS. Like, trust me, there's a lot of people that use prostitution to get their rocks off, you know, and to not bring that up, here, yeah, let's send all the drug addicts and homeless for testing for HIV. Okay, then we should do that to the prostitutes too. It's just crazy what's going on. And then today, In 1988, the Russian Orthodox Church celebrates its 1000th anniversary. uh, I could get a lot more into the AIDS epidemic and how it was treated, and then even still to this day, the way media treats AIDS and the way they talk about AIDS is very discouraging, especially what we've learned since the 80s, so the late 70s through the 80s into the 90s, what we've learned about this, and then the things we aren't talking about, like, yeah, let's bring up a problem that's already a problem, or let's make people look like they're more of a problem than what they need to be. But the just disgusts me how they put an extra focus on already a troubled society like homelessness and drunk people, drug addicts, drunks, and then to put another label on them like, this is where the AIDS epidemic is coming from. Yeah, that's not just where the AIDS epidemic is coming from. You got to realize on some of these Indian reserves, and they don't have proper education when it comes to those sexually transmitted diseases. They don't have proper access to proper health care when it comes to things like this, like public health centers where they could have access to birth control, condoms, and have access to knowledge, on like signs of STDs and things like that. These remote communities don't have access to these things, and this is where a lot of these epidemics are starting to break out, is in these smaller communities, because they just don't know any better. And a lot of the a lot of this stuff should be still brought up in school, but point to a point. I know there's a lot of red tape when it comes to the way teachers are being, you know held accountable for a way that a curriculum is being put out there. Yeah, like, you have to get a permission slip to talk about certain things in school. You got to get a permission slip for that. Like, it's just getting out of control. And with parents nowadays, uh, they're putting too much emphasis on the teachers being babysitters, and then the teachers get a lot of the blame when it should be the parents' fault in the first place. Like, yes, my child is with me most of the time, like, for good, like 8 hours of the day as a teacher, right? But it's not my kid, and you should be responsible as a parent on certain things. And then they say, like, I don't want my kids to learn anything in sexual education. It's like, okay, and then you don't put your kid gets pulled out of that class while all the rest of the students, there'll be the odd kid pulled out, blah blah blah, because their parents don't want them to learn anything like this. And you know who ends up being the first person with a baby or pregnant? That one person whose parents pulled them out of that sexual education class, and they didn't learn anything. So, like, it's just all comes down to parenting. And you can't, and then those parents, if they whether they were told or not that their child was going to be learning something like that, the teachers and the school would get the flack for that. Well, there you go, now you got a kid with a baby, so there you go, there goes your quality of life. Hope you like being a early grandmother, like, because you're gonna be looking after that kid while your other kid is gonna go to school and work at a McDonald's, not get an education. So yeah, need to stop blaming teachers and schools for things, you guys. It's like, when the kids get home, they're stuck in a tablet. They're stuck on the internet. They're stuck on their video games. Like, as a parent, you should be doing something to make them get up and do something. And then teach them some values at that too. Kids don't have values anymore. They don't know what values are. Values to them is how many people watches them on TikTok, how many subscribers they have to their channel. Actually, this is their friends, how many subscribers they have. You really think you have 2,000 friends? No, you don't. Yeah, how many of those people, if you called right now, you're like, hey, yeah, I need a hand right now, how many of those people would actually come and help you? I have one person, if I called it right now, he'd be like, okay, be there in 5 minutes. And he'd be here in less than 5 minutes. Like that's a friend, you know. Even people that you know in daily life. Ask one of those friends. Actually, that's you guys should start thinking about stuff like that. Who are your friends? Who are your friends? Okay, now start calling people and be like, hey, yeah, I need a cup of sugar or I need a cup of flour, or hey, well, don't ask them to help you move, because I know what my answer would be. I have so many friends ask me, hey, can you help me move? And then when it comes to my turn to move, you think any of those people gave me a hand? Oh, no, I'm busy this week. I got a rodeo. It's like, yeah, right. Meanwhile, I see you at the bar after I'm done moving. It's like, oh, yeah, I just got back from the rodeo. Yeah. Yeah, okay. Not on my friends list anymore. People I consider friends are people that I could call right now and they'd be there, you know, or somebody I could ask for like $20. They'd give me $20. So it's like, dude, I'm short like $20. Can you give me $20? Oh yeah, here you go. Those are friends. But I'd do the same thing too. If I had money, I was always generous. But it's funny when you don't have money. Do you think people are generous to you? It's so funny. I have one buddy who goes to the bar. People feed him drinks all day, all day. It's like, you know, about all the times I bought you guys drinks. No, no, it's not the way it works. No, you you're gonna be a bum for the rest of your life, and you're gonna be a bum for the rest of your life. But I'm happy with that. Oh, cool. Well, I'm out of here. I'm gonna enjoy my weekend. Maybe go for a couple hikes. Might take you guys for a hike, and maybe even later tonight I'll go for a hike. Bring you guys with me. But I'll be back Monday for Monday's show, News Strip Down. 30 minutes or less. Why? Because anything longer than that's just BS. I know I did a little chat there at the end. It's Friday. Yeah. And then I really didn't do too much of a live yesterday. I helped my buddy. I cleaned his garage, fixed his garage door because it was jammed up. And the guy who came and looked at it said, can't be fixed. You need a new garage door. I was like, yeah, bullshit. And the funny thing is, I fixed the garage door with just these, just these, just my fingers. Wow, this door can't be fixed. Wow, that's the story of this world right now. It's like, oh yeah, yeah, you need a new door. It's like, oh yeah, your AC unit's not working. No, you need a new one. But yeah, did a lot of work yesterday and cleaned his mudroom and weed whacked his yard. But I'll be back for Monday's show or later tonight. So peace out, you guys. Have a good one and have a great weekend. Enjoy the weather if it's nice.